Cavalier faithful, welcome back to Cavs Encapsulated, episode 2. No Justin tonight. He's not feeling well. Shout out to Justin. He's going to be back. He's going to be better than ever. But we have our second special guest of this young Cavs NBA season, and that's Kelsey Russo. Kelsey, first of all, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for joining me and Logan. Kelsey is a staff writer for The Athletic, covering the Cleveland Cavaliers. She also previously contributed and served for the Atlanta Dream team in the WNBA in the 2019 season. And she was a part of the Athletics launch of the WNBA coverage, which I want to ask about that to start, actually, because from somebody who we've kind of launched our own thing here, I wanted to talk about that with you and kind of covering the WNBA. And you're a graduate of Georgia. You spent 3 years there covering Georgian athletics, but you're an Ohio native. So yeah. We got a lot going on here. I know that the Bachelor of Arts in Journalism and Sports Media, kind of similar to what Justin went to college for, which is a shame he couldn't be here. I know Logan did this in college. I covered some sports team in college as well. So we got a lot of common themes going on here, and we all enjoy the Cavs. So that's also what we do as a hobby. But I want to start before the Cavs, like I said, launching the WNBA coverage with The Athletic. What was that like, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was awesome. So basically, this kind of funny how this all came about. I literally was going into I was graduating, and I was like, I don't have a job, but it's fine. I'll figure it out. The classic journalism thing.
Right.
And I knew somebody that actually was working for The Athletic, and she had called me, and she was like, hypothetically, if we were going to start, this coverage of the WNBA, would you be interested in freelancing? And I was like, absolutely. So went through the hiring process. And I was living in Atlanta at the time after I graduated, so it worked out perfectly. But it was so cool because I really had the freedom to do I could shape the coverage how I wanted, and I was really one of just a very few writers that covered the Dream at that time. So I got kind of my pick of stories. So I wrote tons of features, really deep dives on these women, because a couple of them were models and their moms, and they just have really interesting backstories. Yeah. So they didn't have a good season that year, but it was kind of a good opportunity for me to do some different feature stuff. So I did that summer of 2019, and then basically after their season ended, that freelance job ended. And so I applied for this opening and went through the hiring process and got hired and moved back to Cleveland. So it's been a crazy journey, but it's been really cool to be with The Athletic since I graduated. So
pick the right time to cover the Cavs.
Right.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
That's honestly, we totally feel that though. That's kind of why we do it. Obviously, as a hobby, you have a little bit more of a serious role, and that's what you put all your time into at college, which is just impressive on its own, right? Yeah. But it's Logan will just text me, be like, hey, let's do this for a video. Or Justin will be like, hey, we'll just be like, all right. It's not like someone's like, hey, we have to do this. We have to meet quotas. We have to meet deadlines. It's just kind of this thing that we do as three buddies, just following, covering the teams we love, and it's kept us together. You talk with people who you might not have talked with, or like you said, you stayed around the Atlanta area right after you got out of school. So that was actually my next question. So you've been covering the Cavs since 2020, 2021 till now.
2019, 2020. So
okay.
Yes,
okay. Oh, because the summer. Well, yes, so the summer ended, then you went right into the fall.
Yes.
Wow, not much of a break there.
No. Literally, I think I accepted the job, and within a week, I accepted the job. Within a week, moved back to Cleveland, and then media day was that Monday. It was.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. As soon as the Cavs season ends, we're like, all right, I love you guys. We're not I don't talk to them for 2 weeks. I'm like, whatever. Everything else is on, especially when they go far, when you're in the playing game, it's like, man, I love this team. But every Tuesday for 3-4 months, we're on here hey, Cavs, which is awesome. I would never give any of it back. But the game last night, and Logan, we're going to let you talk because I know you love getting your 2 cents talking off. I know you do. But we got a special guest, so we're going to dial it back. We're going to dial it back a little bit. But so last night, let's just baseline overall thoughts right off the rip. I don't have anything too structured, just casual conversation.
Yeah. I mean, so it's kind of funny because basically it was only a half of a game, which is fine. That's fine. But that first half, I think what really stood out to me was I just loved how Darius and Donovan play off one another. I loved the dynamic. We had kind of heard all through camp of like they're like JB Bickerstaff talking about how like they're really dynamic, they can play off one another well, and it creates multiple threats on the floor. And I was like, okay, yeah, but like I want to really see how this works. And I thought we saw that last night, like so clearly of like when Darius got double teamed, it opened up Mitchell or it opened up like Karras, and it just like created so many different opportunities and threats on the floor. And I thought what was really interesting is Darius talked about last night about the spacing on the floor and how well it works, and kind of not really expecting that. So I just thought the flow was really good, like their offensive flow. I liked Karras next to those two, and then that's obviously something that's like been a topic of conversation through camp, is like who they're going to have start at the 3.
That was my next question. You're way ahead of the game.
That's a whole thing. So we gotta.
That is a whole thing.
But like I like seeing him next to those two and kind of getting a feel of just like what that could look like, and obviously like Karras didn't have a ton of touches. I think he only had like 7 points or something. But I thought like what JB talked about today was interesting. Of he had multiple assists, and he would have had a couple more assists in there too if guys have made those shots. So there's an opportunity there, even though like Karras is a scorer and like he's like his role can be a little bit different, that works well next to those two. So I think there's an opportunity there to kind of see what that looks like. So I thought last night was a good first like look at it against a different team, because when they're playing themselves, they were like, oh, we know what we're going to do. So there's no, there's like, so it's a little bit different when you actually face another team and see what their defense is doing against you.
Yeah, Kelsey alluded to it. Talking about 28 points, 9 assists, 10 of 16 from the floor, 4 or 5 from deep. When you talk about that backcourt for the Cavaliers, I think what stood out to me is I mentioned it when we got Donovan Mitchell. It gives us the competitive edge. You're playing a team at the Sixers. They're not going to go away. They go on their runs. They have dynamic scores. Tyrese Maxey kicks our ass every time we play.
Cavalier killer, your favorite.
Yeah, Cavalier killers. I can
so
go.
Many of them.
Kelsey, I have a whole list of my Cavalier killers. Lou Williams is at the top. Lou Williams is right at the top.
I need to hear this list.
But anyway, what I like though now with the Cavaliers is they do have the competitive edge. They can stay in games. You saw a couple times where Maxey hits a 3, they go down to Mitchell in the left corner, he drills a 3 right back. I mean, I think that's something that was missing last year from the Cavaliers. Obviously, we had those comeback runs. We had the Cavalanches, as we've now coined it. But I think when it comes to like just getting your offense early, forget about that. Go do your business down there. I think that's where the Cavaliers have advantages. You talk about the spacing on the floor. How many times do we see a cross-court feed? LeVert all the way to the corner to Mitchell. LeVert over to Mitchell, then one extra pass to Love for 3. I mean, there was so much spacing on there. There was a lot of good ball movement. And I think at the end of the day, when you have the competitive edge, when you can stay in games, and now you have the closers like you do in Garland and Mitchell, that can only spell good things for the Cavaliers moving forward.
Well, Logan, hold that thought.
Okay.
Because you're man, we're on the ball. We're always on the ball, but tonight we're on the ball because I got you have the honor of our clip breakdown tonight. Because Kelsey's new, so I don't want to be like, clip breakdown right now. But we'll get her acclimated for the next time she comes on.
Bring it on.
Because she's going to want to come back. But Logan, like you said, from what you didn't see last year, I have the clip breakdown of the night, and I want you to tell me how you felt, because I know you're texting me.
Am I going to be muted while I?
No. After.
Okay, so I'll make sure I'm ready.
But Kelsey was talking about this already, and you just brought this up, so let's get into it.
Maxey, a couple of early threes, a floater. He had 8 points in the first 2 minutes. Monday in Brooklyn had 14 in the first quarter.
One pass into the 3. Maxey's just even this much out of position. DM hits the 3. I mean, that's what we didn't have last year.
And this is what I noticed. Jared Allen takes James Harden with him to the basket, right?
Yes.
As soon as he does that, Mitchell's going. He's going to be running to that corner. Maxey's always going to play catch up. That's what the teams are going to have to do against the Cavaliers now. We have such an awesome twin towers down low with Mobley and Allen that, when you have these dynamic guards out on the wings and guys that have speed, obviously Sexton, we know he had the speed. We know he did. The question mark was he always running to the right place? Was he filling the right hole? Mitchell knows exactly what he's doing on the court. In that situation, he knows where Garland's eyes are. He knows where the attention is of the defense. Get out of the way, get to your spot, get the shot up. And that's what these Cavaliers have to do. No hesitation. Similar to Dean Wade, I thought he was firing it with confidence yesterday. Yep. Not one hesitation. He did a lot last year where he's trying to be a team player, pass the ball, move it a little bit. I got to imagine JB said you got to be a bigger threat. You got to be shooting three so they at least respect it more. And so the offense doesn't stalemate, right? So constant movement of the basketball. That's how the Golden State Warriors became so successful, is just everybody's always moving. And if you look at that play, I'm pretty sure all 5 guys besides Garland, who's waiting for that right move, is moving.
Absolutely. And I think which was interesting to me because Mobley doesn't get the start last night, obviously with the ankle injury. And last year, if we had a starter out, it was to the point where, okay, the offense was going to need to come from somewhere else. Now, last night's a preseason game, take it with a grain of salt, but it's like it didn't look like the offense was completely hindered, even though Mobley wasn't there. And another interesting part is that LeVert gets a start at the 3, which, Kelsey, I'm going to ask you about next. If you think that's an indicator from JB, from someone who's probably been around JB to the closest capacity.
Certainly more than us.
On campus the most. Do you think that's an indicator? Because I believe last year in preseason games, he didn't start Lowry in preseason games last year.
There was potential.
Good question.
Phone ringing.
That's quite all right.
I don't think he did. Not for like all of them. So I don't know if
it's definitely not for all of them. I want to say maybe one, but
maybe one. And then opening night, he was the starter.
Yes.
So yeah. I think that's an interesting trend to look at, but it's like LeVert could bring the ball up. DG is obviously the one to bring the ball up, and Donovan Mitchell could bring the ball. But last year, it's like we got a rebound. It's like where's Darius? Where's Darius? Now it's like, okay, LeVert gets rebound, we're gone. Defense isn't set. Last year, we're looking for Darius to get him an outlet pass, and the defense is already set up, and we already have people in the place. Now it's like Karras, go. Donovan Mitchell, get the ball and go. If Mobley's growth is as expected, Mobley get the rebound and go. Like we know he could do that. So I like it. I like the dynamic, playmaking ability all the way across the court. But LeVert gets a start at the 3. Do you think that was a product of Mobley not playing, or is that an indicator of, hey, we're going to roll with our technical 5 best guys to start?
Death lineup.
So it's kind of an interesting thing because all through training camp the last week and a half, JB's talked about how there's 6 guys in this conversation, which is a lot. But he says there's 6. So
there's 6 guys for that conversation, but he only wants to play 10.
Yes,
so like,
I know.
That's it. That's like there's 4, and then that's it.
Right, exactly. So it's Karras, Isaac, Dean Wade, Lamar Stevens, Jetty Osman, and Dylan Windler. So all 6. And which is great. And it's been a really good thing in camp, and it's making guys competitive. Everybody's raising their game. It's not like a tension thing. Like it's a good, just competitive nature. But JB made it clear through camp that he's going to use these opportunities to try tons of different lineups, try different guys at the 3, to see kind of what it actually looks like against an NBA opponent. And there's really not any decision yet about like who's like, he won't even, when we ask him of like, who's like leading that conversation, he just like looks at you and he won't give an answer. But so it's like, yeah. So I think, I think it's really good that Karras got the start because I think it was that first crack at it, but I don't necessarily think it's a complete indication of where this is going. But because he is one of the guys, obviously in that conversation, it's good to get him out there and see what that looks like. And I think too, then like I think Dean Wade came in was the first sub kind of quickly after, which kind of also gave him an opportunity to look at what Dean looked like with that starting group. So again, I just really think it's an opportunity for JB to just use tons of different matchups and combinations, see what guys look like out there, since these games don't necessarily obviously matter for the record. But two, I think some of it obviously did kind of factor in Evan not being there, so that's why Love got the start, which I thought was actually a really good opportunity to see what Love looked like with the starters, because last year he was one of the guys that he was one of the first guys off the bench last year. So he is going to play some minutes with the starters. So I thought that was really good. But two, JB kind of has talked about how he has sort of 2 schools of thought on this 3 of you either you put your 5 best guys out on the floor is one thought. So kind of regardless. Sure. The other is kind of looking at it more situational and sort of kind of trying to with matchups and who and how to match guys up. So it's kind of a combination, I think. And so it's kind of an opportunity for him to experiment of okay, do we just put the 5 best guys out there? Do we look at how this is going to line up? How do we kind of find the balance between the two of them? Because I think there's a way that they can sort of find that balance of the two kind of thoughts. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation, something I've been asking about a lot. And, it hasn't, I think we'll kind of, as preseason goes on closer to opening night, we'll have kind of a better idea of what this is going to potentially look like.
Who do you like at the 3?
Yeah, who do you like?
Yeah, I'm curious.
So I'm a Dean Wade guy.
Are you locked into
personally.
Dean Wade though? There's less than 2 weeks left. It's the 6th. We play on the 18th. Are you locked into Dean Wade?
I also already
regardless?
predicted that we'd win the first 2 games, which I'm sure I'll change my mind on once we get there. I don't know. I just feel good. I feel good. I'm gonna put a lottery ticket in.
We got a schedule. But...
So I'm not locked into Dean Wade, but what I said on the last podcast is that I think when you have the guys we do already out there, you need a guy that's going to just be running around tirelessly, firing up threes, defending guys. And it gives you a semblance of the Lauri Markkanen Cavaliers having a big that can move like a 3, that can defend like a 3, that can put it on the floor, can be aggressive. He's way more athletic than people give him credit for.
True.
I guess I'm not locked into Dean Wade. I just think when it comes to fit flow, that makes sense to me. I also like the idea of when LeVert comes off that bench, him or Mitchell's still out there. Now, granted, you only need to sub out one of the 3 if you want to start LeVert. And I'm going to tell you this right now. We start LeVert opening night, I'm not going to be upset about it. That's a fantastic starting 5. You're not going to see me complaining. But until Rubio's back, off that bench, you're looking at Kevin Love. You're looking at Jetty Osman. You're looking at Robin Lopez. You're looking at
Raul Neto.
I mean, you got guys, sure.
Guys.
But what actually fits? What actually makes it move? I guess I wonder, are Karras and K Love a great combination off the bench? They got that what's it called, that chemistry later in the season, and Karras just started playing better basketball later in the season as well once he was more acclimated. I just like to believe that LeVert needs to be that ball handler off the bench along with Garland and Mitchell. Love fills in as that spot up shooter. I just think you have more balance that way if you go Wade. Oh, I also forgot Isaac Okoro in my list. My bad. I forgot about that.
You're good.
I think at Okoro, I don't know. I'm locked into LeVert personally. I've been locked into LeVert since we
said it. He said a long time ago. I called
since
him an
we
idiot,
traded.
And now here we are.
Donovan Mitchell. But it's like, and here's my secondary issue with the whole who's going to start at the 3 is that I don't think that JB needs to overthink it and be like, okay, if we're playing Brooklyn, do we give Dean Wade a spot start? There's not many guys in the league who are really good at like, hey, we're going to give you a spot start. Hey, you're coming off the bench. We've seen it. Kevin Love actually was a nice, pretty much seamless transition. Obviously, he said that he struggled with it the first, couple months of the season, I believe, in some interviews, going from a starter on a championship contender team to coming off the bench. And then it's like, we know that if Jetty Osman isn't in this box to roll, if Dylan Windler isn't in this box to roll, they sometimes struggle. If Jetty has to make spot starts, I don't know if that is just overthinking it from JB's part, or if it's matchup wise, he trusts his guys, by all means, throw them out there. But I'm locked into LeVert as far as that goes. We'll see what happens though. Kelsey, you have 2 more weeks to write about that.
I know.
So you better just, get as much content out of that as possible.
I'm like, all right. I ask about it all the time. I'm like, and he's like, nothing's changed. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, and he's like,
can it change for my article? And just be like, can it change for my article?
He's like, you're making it more of a conversation than anything. I was like, well, because it is. I don't know. I like your point. I think Dean makes. I mean, I think you can make any of them make sense, but right, sure. I think Dean makes sense in a kind of what you're saying of the spacing. He can make those threes. He's just kind of this really easy. You could slot him in there, and he just fits well. And I think it gets understated how much of a skill it is that Dean can go from being a starter, coming off the bench, not playing a stretch of games.
A lot to be said for that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said of just that he plays very consistently, no matter what that role is. And he just kind of rolls with it and he's ready. And I think JB really respects that. And it's something that he's taken notice of, and just how Dean operates, how he's just always ready in whatever capacity that he needs. But I'm so curious. I mean, like I said, I think there's Isaac's an interesting option because you have the defensive piece there, because you have guys like you have Darius, you have Donovan, you have Evan, like you have all these guys that can go, they can score. That Isaac doesn't necessarily have to be this like really big offensive threat. He can just go play defense. And that's what he's really good at. And when you play a smaller backcourt and, smaller, but, like it's Isaac can bring that defense on the wing, which is really important. And so I think that's an interesting lineup combination. So I don't know. I'm curious to see sort of how this all this plays out.
Well, I want to give you a comparison here that just came off the top of my head. When Max Strus began starting for the Miami Heat, I said, who the hell is Max Strus?
This is correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he started drilling threes and he was a star in his role. I think that's what Dean Wade can be. Can he be like a 17-point-per-game guy like Strus realistically has the potential to be? I don't know. Probably not. But at the same time, anybody who's not a Cavalier fan is probably saying, who the hell is Dean Wade?
Yep.
They see D Wade, they're thinking Dwayne Wade, former Cavalier legend. But with Dean Wade, if he gets that opportunity to just be the shooter and be the defender like Max Strus was, no one cares about what college he came from, what his background is, why does he deserve the starting spot? It's all within the organization, right? Miami thinks this is going to be the best fit for them. If he starts, he's the guy. We already had Jimmy Butler. We have Kyle Lowry. We have Bam Adebayo. We have all these guys. Throw out Strus there, ends up being a star for their role, and now their offense is even more dangerous, right? And I think that's what the Cavaliers have a chance to do here with Dean Wade. Put a guy out who the rest of the league doesn't know, but has some talent and fits your team well as a starter.
100%.
Logan, I love that point because honestly, if we could get numbers from Dean Wade like this, nobody's complaining. Where are his minutes? I don't even know how many minutes per games he played, but 10 points.
Yeah, down the stretch, he was playing a lot.
He's playing, he played good. 3 total rebounds, 10 points a game. We're thrilled with Dean Wade numbers if he had numbers like that. So I totally agree. That's a good point, honestly, because it's correct. Until we played him a couple of times, I never heard of the guy until last year, and he's hitting 3, like looking good. But he proved the spacing was needed over there. So I like that point. That's solid. All right. One last serious question, then fun question, then we'll wrap it up and we'll get out of your hair. So as far as your multiple seasons covering the team, does it feel like the demeanor is different, like in the building? Is JB and Kobe like noticeably different from your perspective, or is it just like same even line? Like, do they know that the expectations are heightened, or is it just like they're not letting on?
No, I think it was something that we talked about with them on media day, right? When we had the press conference for Donovan Mitchell a couple weeks before media day, I can't remember the date, but we talked about it because it's like, especially following this trade, like it raises the Cavs to a whole other level. And I wrote about that of just how last year was kind of, in a little bit of a sense, the Cinderella year of they took this massive leap that nobody was expecting from around the league.
Let them know.
Yeah, exactly. And
We're gonna let them know again.
Yep. But like down the stretch, obviously, like all the injuries and everything, and they fell off. But at the end of last season, like there was so much disappointment that they weren't going to the playoffs.
Right.
And it was kind of funny. Like this is like, so they were talking about like when they do end of season interviews, they're always like guys sometimes when they know how the season's going to project out, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going on vacation, whatever. Nobody had plans because they all thought they were going to playoffs. They thought they were going to go farther. So there was this true disappointment and like the thought that they could have gone farther. So I think like that fueled a lot this summer, but then this Mitchell trade obviously just kind of raised it to another level. But I think what's really interesting and JB talked about this on media day and sort of has projected this of they still feel like they haven't proven anything. They didn't make the playoffs last year. Yes, they took this leap, but like, so from an outside perspective, we say that they've made this but they don't believe that. Like they believe they haven't proven anything. And so they're sort of kind of, in a sense, this underdog mentality once again, while also understanding that, teams aren't overlooking them now. Last year they were like, Cleveland, whatever. And then all of a sudden they were like really, really good. Now that they're circled and they understand that, but there's still this little bit of underdog mentality of trying to prove themselves once again and make it farther. So I think the demeanor, I thought it was funny. last week, somebody asked Darius like what the vibes were like at camp, and he was like immaculate vibes, and then like which was just so funny. And then like JB was like, I don't even know what that means, but like but they really foster like true, genuine relationships with these guys, and like I think it's really, I mean, it translates really well onto the court, and I think we see that, and I see that in little bits when you talk to guys, when you see how they're interacting in the, we see like a little bit of like the practice at the very, very end. And just the way that they're interacting with one another, the way that they carry themselves when they do press conferences kind of thing, of there is this genuine like care about one another, and they really do like to play with each other. And there's also this like sense of excitement that I think they're taking these heightened expectations. Like, yes, they all say they're not really listening to them, but they're taking these expectations and it's turning into an excitement. It's turning into motivation that they're using to really excel on the floor together. So, but yeah, I mean, everyone's demeanor is different, but there's like a sense of they want to prove to people like what, like, and, and making these moves, and I think that's another thing of like, hey, yeah, they went out and got Donovan Mitchell, and nobody thought that's how this was going to go this summer. And now, and now the Cavs are in this conversation, and they want to show that like that they aren't a team that you can just gloss over. And so I think there's that like added motivation, if that makes sense.
Well, Logan and I have talked about it basically all offseason, that even though we've got substantially better and we improved last year, other teams in the Eastern Conference got better as well. So
we
it's
picked
not
a bad
like
time to be good. Yeah,
but that's fine though. I'm okay with the competitive Eastern Conference. I mean, for the most part, that's all we grew up on, is that the Eastern Conference all the way from the early 2000s was always good. Now LeBron made it look easy, obviously, going back to those days, but it's like Atlanta got better. New York made moves. Me and Logan have discussed that it's going to be okay, because it's not like we didn't automatically shoot up to everyone's number one rankings in the East. It's like the Bucks are still highly regarded. Boston's coming off of a finals trip. So
Sixers have two.
Correct.
Whatever.
Nets, like.
Yeah, who
Nets
knows?
didn't disintegrate, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, and I think like to that point too, I think that's what was really interesting sorry, I forgot about this, on media day. Kobe always talking about how like this year isn't like contention or bust, and setting expectations in that sense, because after the trade happened, I don't know if like my Twitter all of a sudden was just like, oh my God, they're going to the championship and like NBA finals.
Cleveland fans at their finest.
Whoa. Let's slow down a little bit, people. Like
let's get them in the building first.
Yeah, I was like, appreciate the enthusiasm, but let's just look at all of this, because like you said, like the East got better. Like that's 6 teams right there that are like in the conversation for the playoffs. And then you have, I mean, you got the Raptors in that conversation like as well for the play-in. Like there's a lot of, we have to see how this kind of plays out. But I did think it was really interesting that he was like, this year is not contention or bust. Like we have a little bit of a runway here over the next couple of years with Mitchell's contract, with Evan Mobley's contract, like, which I think is a great thing because regardless, I mean, they should make the playoffs this year. Like that obviously is a goal, but like, it's if they like, not all of them have playoff experience, and a playoff series is totally different than a play-in game or a regular season game. Like the nuances of playing a series and how things change from game to game is just something that those young guys have to learn. And the only way you really can learn it is by like actually doing it. And so like them getting playoff experience is super beneficial, but like if they like get knocked out early on, like that's okay. It's a step for them that they have to take. And so I thought that was also interesting of just sort of taming some expectations, because people were, ready to name them NBA champions like 30 seconds after the trade. And I was like, whoa, let's chill.
Well, yeah, what I've preached to Jeff over a year ago when I first started coming on this show is I'm optimistic yet I'm realistic. That's always been my mantra. And I think I took that on when I started doing sports broadcasting. I think that served me well, because when I was a kid, I'm like, well, we have LeBron, we should beat them. That was the logic at the end of the day. And I know that a lot of Cavs fans nowadays will lose to the Sixers on a random Thursday night in December. And they'll be like, well, we have Donovan Mitchell, we have Darius Garland. Like, there's so much that goes into. You have to keep a level head. And believe me, our group chat at times, I wasn't keeping a level head either last year. I'm like, son of a,
that doesn't make it on air unless we want to make it on air.
No, yeah. I mean, like, there was times where I would get upset, sure, but you have to remind yourself, optimistic yet realistic. That's how you have to be with this Cavaliers team. We are very optimistic. Do I think we could beat any of those 6 teams ahead of us in a game? I absolutely do. I think we can play with any of them. That's me being realistic. But also me being realistic is knowing the very real threat that every team right now you play in these conference is tough. The Detroit Pistons aren't a joke anymore. That team is going to be tough to beat. They might win only 25 to 30 games this year. Maybe they make the play-in down. Who knows? But, I mean, there's teams up and down. I'm not scared of the Magic. Like, I'm not scared of, I don't know, whoever else. I mean, Charlotte's even sometimes. They can be tough.
Decent.
They can be tough at times.
The Bulls are going to be interesting.
The Bulls. We forget all about the Bulls. I mean, that's what – there's 8 spots. There's 8 spots. Well, there's really 6 spots. We learned that last year.
Yep.
So it's definitely a case of, I think we're as good as any of the 6 teams ahead of us. But at the end of the day, I also realistically think we could easily drop to them. It's tough. We were the second place in the Eastern Conference last year, but I didn't get my head held too high. I was like, okay, we're not going to finish there. I can't possibly envision the Cavaliers as the 2nd seed. Injuries take over. That's part of being realistic as well.
Yep.
So yeah, just have to have the right mindset, and that's what I'm trying to train myself to do. Last thing, I know I'm rambling. When LeBron came back in 2014, my dad said, you're going to get pissed every single game they lose, right? And I was like, no, I won't, Dad. And of course, I was getting so I got so angry when Gordon Hayward had a game winner over us in the 2nd game of the year at Utah. I was like, we lost to the freaking Jazz. I mean, it's as you grow up, you just really have to be optimistic yet realistic, and some people just never get that way.
Oh man, it's so Cleveland sports. We love them. We shout out to Cleveland sports, but here we are. At least they bring us together.
Drive me insane.
That's all we could. That's all we could ask for. All right, last question. Logan, you can answer too, but I don't know. I don't know if this applies to you. I think it does because I think it does. So I got to do some research before we have people on. So my last question is, what is your coffee order?
Oh, okay. So when I go to Starbucks.
Okay, I was gonna say Starbucks or Dunkin', but I didn't want to. I didn't want to.
Don't assume. You never want to assume that.
Yeah, I'm definitely I'm also like I love local coffee shops. So like, that's my usual go-to. So like Open Door and Hudson's a big one that I go to very frequent. But Starbucks is my like generic, brand go-to. I either do the peppermint mocha, which you can order not in Christmas time, which I did learn. And because I need the espresso because this job doesn't allow for a lot of sleep. So the shots of espresso are a little necessary. Or I do like a white chocolate mocha, which is also espresso. So I kind of go back and forth between the 2 of them.
Just coffee though. Nothing else.
Just coffee.
No Red Bulls. No Monsters.
Bacon
no
Gouda sandwich from Starbucks.
The tomato mozzarella pesto sandwich from Starbucks. That's like a go-to. Yeah. But no, I did the Red Bull for a little bit in college and didn't made my heart
stomach every time was so upset.
Yeah.
To do that. It didn't work.
So
I'm addicted to Red Bull.
Ample amounts of coffee.
Fair enough. Logan, we know you're in the coffee town of the world, Austin.
Yeah. And yet I still go to Starbucks. When I'm
how long do you wait at your local Starbucks? Are you in traffic for
it's not
hours?
Bad. There's one by the airport that kind of sucks on my way into town. There's one right down the street from where I work. But when you work in television production, like Kelsey, you're up late hours. You're planning things weeks in advance, and you're still planning that thing days in advance and hours in advance. Yes. I mean, there's a lot of things going through your mind at once. So if I'm just going in, I need to get a cup of coffee. I will go to Starbucks. I'm very simple. I used to only get a mocha. I got bullied out of getting a mocha because it's not coffee. So then I started getting a cold brew with the natural sweetener because for some reason they always ask me this. I'm like, can I get 2 pumps of vanilla in there? Like, do you also want the regular sweetener? I'm like, let's see, I haven't slept in 26 hours. Yeah, let's do it. So that's usually my go-to is a simple cold brew. Put the sugar in there. Sometimes I'll even add a little packet when I get into the office and sprinkle that in too. There's a lot of good coffee shops in Austin. There's one right on the water, right on Lake Austin, I think. That sounds like I made that up, but I think it's real. And it's a coffee shop right on the water. It's called Mozart's. It's gorgeous in there. I usually go there sometimes, not regularly, but every now and then I'll go like on a Saturday or Sunday, just kind of sit and drink my coffee and,
I think you had some coffee before we started here tonight.
I'm a little more amped up today. We have a special guest,
I know.
Jeffrey.
Second special guest of the year.
But I got, Justin's not here. I got to carry the load of 2 people here.
I know.
I'm doing
We'll
my
be all right,
very
though.
best. And this isn't alcohol. It's a red cup. It's
I was
just
gonna
water.
say partying.
It's plastic or whatever. It's a hard plastic.
Too busy partying at OU
Yeah.
and calling basketball games. Well, here we are.
Here we are.
Well, for me, ice macchiato, caramel in the venti. Honestly, though, I'm a weirdo though. I put the cup right under the Keurig, put the pot in it, black. I drink it black. I drink it black all the time.
Well, I do that too when
That's like different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's like I have a French press. Like it's a 1 cup French press that I make.
You're serious about this?
Yeah. Oh. I said
Everywhere that I was like, put your name into Google and it'd be like coffee. It'd be like coffee close by, and I'd be like, all right, well, I guess
that's gotta be the poll for this week. Everyone's gonna be so confused who haven't seen the episode. Just what's your favorite coffee from the Cleveland Pulse?
Just tweet it out. We'll tweet it out.
Yeah. But like my go-to at home when I'm like, okay, probably shouldn't spend like $6 on a cup of coffee. Is just I do just make it and then I add like a little bit of peppermint creamer because I like the peppermint, so that's my go-to at home.
I hear you.
Fair enough. Well, Kelsey, thank you very much. Kelsey Russo covering the Cleveland Cavaliers at The Athletic, at Kelsey Russo over on Twitter. 2 Y's. I'm looking at it. That's the only reason I know. Go over there. Say, hey, we loved you on the Cleveland Pulse. Go tweet at her, so she'll be inclined to come back.
She'll tell you who the starting 3 is before anybody else.
Yeah, she will.
Exactly.
She will. That's
She's on
it. That's true. Go over there, follow her. Make sure you stay involved. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Kelsey, anywhere else we could find you? Just The Athletic, just Twitter?
Yep, that's where everything's at. All my stories are at The Athletic, and I tweet them all on my Twitter, so everything's housed there.
Perfect. Well, Cavs faithful, we appreciate you guys hanging along for the ride. Typical episode for us, 37 minutes. And
go longer than we think.
Season's 2 weeks away. So, I mean, this is where it's ramping up. Daily episodes, a couple episodes a week, however we want to get it out. Still have to cover the Browns, but that's a different story. That's a me and Justin thing. But as far as the Cavs, as far as Cleveland, make sure.
Hey, go guards. Go guards.
Go guards. Yeah. Shout out to the guards. I almost missed the guards. I love the guards.
I got you last second.
Before we see you guys again, make sure you let them know.